March 9th, 1945, a night that would forever change the course of history. The island nation of Japan, gripped by pride and centuries-old traditions, refused to yield. Unbeknownst to them, a force beyond anything they had ever seen was gathering strength in the distance. From the distant Mariana Islands, an armada took to the skies. 300 B-29 superfortresses, the largest bombers ever built, their bellies filled with a deadly cargo. Over 500,000 incendiary bombs designed to burn Tokyo to the ground. This was Operation Meeting House, a turning point in the Pacific War. After months of frustratingly precise bombings that left Japan's military infrastructure intact, the United States made a calculated shift. Surgical strikes were no longer enough. The Allies were ready to deploy overwhelming, indiscriminate power, just as they had done in the fiery ruins of Hamburg and Dresden. As darkness fell over Tokyo, a fierce wind whipped through its streets. Japan's defenses were mere shadows of their former glory. The Imperial Air Force was depleted, and their anti-aircraft capabilities were no match for the storm that was about to descend. The sound of roaring engines filled the night sky as American bombers approached in relentless waves. Then, it began. The first firebombs hit the ground, and almost instantly, entire neighborhoods ignited. Strong winds spread the flames faster, creating what was described as a fire tornado, making it impossible for civilians to escape. The temperatures reached in the firestorm were estimated to exceed 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,000 degrees Celsius, enough to cause people to suffocate or even evaporate. And as the inferno raged on, the city was buried in what would later be known as black snow. But this was no snow. This was the ash of war, the remains of a city, of homes, of lives. By the time the sun rose again, 16 square miles of Tokyo had been reduced to smoldering rubble. Over 100,000 souls had perished, nearly 1 million were left homeless, and the city's very heart had been scorched into a wasteland. This single raid, more destructive than even the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, would go down in history as the deadliest air raid ever recorded. It was a night of unimaginable destruction, a night when the world witnessed the true horror of modern warfare. In the wake of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the United States found itself grappling with the aftermath. The Pacific Fleet had suffered significant damage, and the American public, shocked by the scale of the attack, wanted swift retaliation. However, Japan's military advantage in the Pacific, fortified by a network of island bases and a powerful navy, made an immediate response difficult. Just 132 days after Pearl Harbor, American military planners formulated a bold plan. Led by Lieutenant Colonel James "Jimmy" Doolittle, the mission involved launching 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers from the aircraft carrier USS Hornet. The B-25s, normally designed for ground takeoffs, were modified to extend their range beyond 2,000 miles using auxiliary fuel tanks, allowing them to reach Japan from the sea. On April 18, 1942, the Doolittle raid commenced. The bombers targeted several major cities, including Tokyo, Yokohama, Kobe, and Nagoya, causing moderate damage. While the raid didn't cripple Japan militarily, its psychological impact was significant. It marked the first time Japan's mainland had been attacked, signaling to both the Japanese leadership and the world that the United States could strike back. Interestingly, none of the bombers returned to the USS Hornet. The plan always involved flying onto China, where the air crews hoped to land safely. Though the raid had little strategic effect, it did boost American morale and confidence in the war effort. In Japan, the raid sparked a major shift in strategy, resulting in increased efforts to fortify their Pacific defenses. This escalation led directly to the Battle of Midway in June 1942, a turning point in the Pacific theater. Around this time, American engineers were also working on a more advanced bomber, the B-29 Superfortress. With a range of over 5,500 miles, the B-29 had double the reach of the B-25, but to hit Japan effectively, a base closer to the mainland was needed. After intense combat in the Pacific, the United States secured the Mariana Islands, a critical victory. By October 1944, B-29 bombers were stationed there, placing Tokyo within striking distance and altering the trajectory of the war in the Pacific. With the Mariana Islands secured, the U.S. ramped up its bombing campaign against Japan. From new strategic bases on Saipan and Tinian, the B-29 superfortresses took to the skies. These were the largest bombers of their time, equipped with unprecedented range and payload capacity, signaling the next phase in the air war against Japan. In November 1944, General Haywood S. Hansell was tasked with leading the U.S. bombing offensive. His mission was to target Japan's industrial heart, crippling its ability to wage war. The first major operation focused on the Musashino engine factory near Tokyo, a vital site for aircraft production. However, the results were less impactful than hoped. High-altitude precision bombing proved difficult over Japan. The unexpected challenge came from the powerful jet streams, winds that could reach speeds of over 200 miles per hour. These winds, coupled with the limited accuracy of the bombs, led to many strikes missing their targets. As these initial missions failed to deliver the anticipated blow to Japan's war machine, frustration mounted. American leadership, including President Franklin D. Roosevelt, demanded more significant results. The Japanese, despite increasing losses, remained defiant. Their propaganda insisted that Japan would never surrender, and American forces were facing heavy casualties in their island-hopping campaign. Something had to change. In January 1945, General Hansell was replaced by Major General Curtis LeMay, a figure known for his decisive and, at times, ruthless approach to warfare. LeMay understood the urgency of the situation. With the war dragging on and casualties rising, there was immense pressure to bring about a swift conclusion. LeMay quickly determined that the precision bombing strategy would not succeed in forcing Japan to capitulate. Instead, he drew inspiration from the bombing campaigns over Europe, where area bombing had devastated cities like Hamburg and Dresden. The U.S. had already tested the effectiveness of incendiary bombs on wood-structured buildings during trials in the Utah desert. These tests revealed how firebombing could create firestorms in densely built-up areas, particularly in cities like Tokyo, where many buildings were constructed from wood and paper. With this in mind, LeMay made a critical decision. The focus shifted from targeting industrial sites to launching area bombing raids on Japan's urban centers. These raids, using incendiary bombs, were intended to destroy large swaths of cities, inflicting maximum damage and breaking Japan's will to fight. The first of these raids would take place in March 1945, and the impact would be unlike anything seen before. With this change in strategy, the final phase of the war in the Pacific was about to unfold. As Japan's cities grew more densely packed, their urban landscapes became a mix of residential, industrial, and commercial zones. Unlike many Western cities, where industry and housing were often separated, Japan's cities were a patchwork of factories, workshops, and homes, all intertwined. This created a unique vulnerability. American military strategists recognized that setting fire to residential areas wouldn't just destroy homes. It would also cripple the country's industrial output. The potential for devastation was immense. Projections estimated that incendiary attacks on 6 of Japan's largest cities could eliminate nearly 40% of the nation's industrial capacity. This would result in the loss of about 7.6 million man-months of labor, a staggering blow to the Japanese war effort. While the inevitable civilian casualties were a concern, military planners rationalized that many of those civilians were also factory workers. Their deaths would further weaken Japan's ability to continue the war. Preparations for the firebombing campaign intensified. Tests were conducted to determine the most effective incendiary devices, and the M69 bomb emerged as the preferred choice. These bombs, filled with napalm, were designed to spread fires quickly across large areas. Meanwhile, stockpiles of incendiaries were built up on the Mariana Islands. The B-29 superfortresses were modified to carry even larger payloads, with each plane now capable of holding up to 4 tons of explosives. Early firebombing missions in Japan produced mixed results. Some raids caused widespread fires, but others were less successful. For example, a raid on Nagoya on January 3, 1945, resulted in limited damage, as the city's firefighting crews quickly brought the fires under control. This success gave Japanese leaders a sense of confidence, but they underestimated the scale of what was to come. Major General Curtis LeMay closely studied the outcomes of these early missions. He concluded that the bombs were being dropped from too high an altitude, which reduced their accuracy. To improve effectiveness, he made the controversial decision to order lower altitude bombing runs. This would increase the precision of the attacks, but also expose the B-29s to greater anti-aircraft fire. LeMay was willing to take the risk. U.S. intelligence had revealed that Japan's night fighter squadrons posed only a minimal threat. Confident in this assessment, LeMay instructed the crews to remove all defensive weapons from the bombers, further increasing their payload capacity. As the day of the first major firebombing raid approached, there were growing concerns about the civilian casualties that would result. LeMay was aware of these concerns but remained resolute. He once remarked, "If we lose the war, we'll be tried as war criminals." It was a grim acknowledgement of the moral weight of his decisions. But for LeMay, there was no turning back. He believed that Japan was unprepared for a low-altitude, large-scale attack. The stage was set. The B-29s, stripped of their guns and filled with incendiary bombs, were ready to launch one of the most destructive campaigns in military history. What was about to unfold would mark a turning point in the Pacific War and usher in a new era of warfare, where destruction would be delivered with unprecedented intensity. As night fell on March 8, 1945, preparations for a pivotal operation were underway. General Curtis LeMay had planned a large-scale firebombing raid on Tokyo, specifically targeting the Shitamachi district, a hub of working-class activity and home to many of the city's industrial workers. The B-29 crews understood the gravity of their mission: cripple the factories sustaining Japan's war effort. However, it was clear that civilian casualties would be high, an unfortunate reality of modern warfare. LeMay, aware of the importance of this raid, could not personally oversee the mission. He had knowledge of a classified weapon, the atomic bomb, and the risk of his capture and exposure of this secret was too great. Instead, Brigadier General Thomas S. Power of the 314th Bombardment Wing took command. By 5 p.m., the airbase in the Mariana Islands was alive with the roar of engines as 300 B-29 superfortresses prepared for takeoff. The logistical challenge of launching so many bombers required careful coordination, taking 3 hours to get every aircraft into the air. As the bombers approached Japanese airspace, the initial reaction from the Japanese military was one of confusion, mistaking the approaching planes for a routine drill. By the time they realized it was an attack, it was too late to respond effectively. Just after midnight on March 10, 1945, the first incendiaries fell on Tokyo. The leading bombers marked an X over the city, creating a beacon for the rest of the planes to drop their incendiary bombs in a carefully coordinated pattern. Despite Tokyo's best efforts at defense, the fires quickly overwhelmed the city. From their vantage point above, the B-29 crews witnessed the massive blaze consuming the city. Jim Wild, a flight engineer, described the scene. "The world beneath us was an inferno, and the heat and smoke quickly permeated our aircraft. The fires produced such intense thermal updrafts that they lifted the massive bombers thousands of feet into the air before dropping them abruptly. The sky was alive with anti-aircraft fire, and B-29 pilot Robert Bigelow recalled, "The sky was filled with the tracers of anti-aircraft fire, intersecting in a chaotic dance." Despite the danger, Bigelow and his crew stayed focused on their mission, later noting, "The shrapnel's clatter against our wings was almost drowned out by our focus on the task at hand." After releasing their bombs, Bigelow's plane flew away from the city. Even from 150 miles away, the glow from the firestorm was visible. The fires spread rapidly, consuming entire city blocks in minutes, while black smoke billowed into the sky, creating a dark, tarry haze that reached toward the stars. Within half an hour, individual fires merged into a colossal firestorm that engulfed large parts of Tokyo. The city's fire department, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster, was forced to retreat. The Japanese authorities attempted to organize an evacuation, but thousands of people were trapped between the spreading flames and suffocating smoke. One survivor, Haruyo Nihei, had previously experienced bombings in Tokyo, but the panic in her father's voice on the night of March 10th told her this was different. She quickly grabbed her emergency rucksack and fled with her family from their spice shop in Kamedo. As they navigated the streets, Nihei recalled the struggle to breathe, as the air was sucked into the firestorm at hurricane-like speeds. Taking refuge in a shelter, she vividly remembered. The shelter was filled with the sounds of frantic footsteps and the cries of children. When they emerged, the city was in chaos. Homes and landmarks reduced to ashes, and foxholes, once considered safe, were no match for the flames. The smoke from the fires was so thick it disoriented many of the B-29 bombers, causing some to veer off course and inadvertently spread the destruction further. On the ground, temperatures in some areas reached a staggering 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, adding to the unimaginable human toll. By the time the fires were finally contained, helped by the Nakagawa Canal, the devastation was clear. Over 100,000 people had been killed, 1 million more were injured, and another 1 million were left homeless. Survivors returned to find their city in ruins, transformed into a smoldering wasteland. In the aftermath, many survivors sought refuge in Tokyo's wealthier areas. But the stark contrast between the opulence of these neighborhoods and the devastation they had fled sparked outrage. The disparity between the elite and the suffering masses led to riots and unrest. Even after the fires died down, the sky remained filled with smoke and ash. As the remnants of the destruction fell like a dark, ominous snow over Tokyo, the events of that night would be remembered as the Night of the Black Snow. In the aftermath of the Tokyo firebombing, the true magnitude of the destruction was carefully controlled by both Japanese and American media. Each side had its own narrative to protect. For the Americans, the firebombing was framed as a strategic success, a crippling blow to Japan's industrial infrastructure. The Japanese media, however, focused on stories of resilience, highlighting the downing of B-29 bombers and sidestepping the immense civilian suffering that had unfolded. The American leadership at the time did not view the raid, which claimed over 100,000 lives, as a war crime. Instead, it was portrayed as a necessary act to hasten the end of the war and reduce American casualties. However, even as Tokyo's industrial zones lay in ruins and its civilian population suffered unprecedented losses, Japan's resolve remained unbroken. Rather than capitulate, the Japanese military made tactical adjustments, shifting air squadrons from offensive missions to defensive roles, fortifying the capital against future attacks. General Curtis LeMay regarded the mission as a success. In his view, Japan's war-making capabilities had been dealt a decisive blow. The devastation of March 10th fueled the momentum for further attacks. In the following months, Tokyo was bombed again, in April and May, destroying an area 1.5 times the size of Manhattan. The firebombing campaign expanded to other major cities, including Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. Even smaller towns, 58 in total, were not spared. Northfield on Tinian Island, from where the B-29s took off, became the busiest airport in the world during these operations. By June 1945, the U.S. Army Air Forces reported that Japan's primary industrial centers had been thoroughly destroyed. Yet despite the devastation, Japan remained defiant. Rather than surrender, the country's leadership, including Prime Minister Suzuki Kantaro, called for renewed determination. In a public proclamation, Suzuki declared, "We, alongside the entirety of our nation, are incensed by the American actions. We are resolutely committed to confronting and defeating this audacious foe." Japan's resolve held strong for 5 more months until the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced the nation to surrender in August 1945. In the years that followed, the ethical implications of the firebombing campaign became the subject of intense debate. Activists, primarily from Japan, argued that the firebombing of Tokyo should be recognized as a war crime, advocating for an official apology from the United States. They sought to honor the memory of the civilians who had perished that night, the silent victims of the firestorm. However, to this day, the U.S. government has not issued a formal apology. Officially, the Night of the Black Snow remains categorized as a wartime military operation.